when people say SuperYou works, what are they actually referring to?
So it's never product alone, because a lot of people think, oh, if I make a great product, I'm home.
In your case, maybe having Ranveer as a co-founder might have helped as well.
Of course, having a very large celebrity helps with top funnel, grabs your attention, but it comes with its own challenge, which is if you don't supplement that, then it's a waste. You can't be everything to everyone. If you try to do that, you'll be nothing to no one.
Which one do you obsess about the most?
Repeat was and is the only metric I obsess over.
How do you think of competition today?
Have you guys seen this movie called Rush? Like, the biggest thing I got in that movie is competition actually makes you better if you show them the respect that they deserve. You should have enough people loving your product versus having a lot of people liking your product. And love is the space you want to be in. Eggs, Britannia Foods head, I just met with him recently and he said, Nikunj, would SuperYou be the same if it wasn't for quick commerce distribution? I'd bet not. A lot of people think SuperYou spend an exorbitant amount of money on marketing, but it's actually quite the opposite. The only thing that we did differently was be very...
So, Nikunj, we will start with a quick rapid fire, okay?
Okay.
So, your answers need to be rapid and full of fire. So, the first thing that comes to your mind, and I have 5 rapid fire questions for you. A trend in consumer brands you don't believe in at all.
A trend in consumer brands I don't believe in at all. Niche, premium, elitist level on one end of the spectrum brands.
Okay. The most overrated metric in D2C right now.
CAC.
One thing about building SuperYou that surprised you the most.
That consumers actually will give you a lot of honest feedback.
Okay, last question on the rapid fire. One thing you'll never outsource as a founder.
Tough one. Product, maybe?
Product?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, cool. No, thanks for that.
Yeah.
We will just now segue into the slightly longer questions. Be candid, right?
Yeah.
As in the questions are also designed in such a way that we're hoping to get the most honest answers out of you.
Sure.
So the first one, so when people say SuperYou works, right? As in from a brand point of view, product point of view, timing point of view as well. So what do you think is actually, what are they actually referring to? And which one are you worried about the most?
Worried about?
Yeah.
So I think, again, I've said this in other places, but I'll repeat it. I think for any business to come together, it's never just one element that fires, right? So it's never product alone. Because a lot of people think, oh, if I make a great product, I'm home. It's never about brand alone or logo alone. It's never about just distribution or just about a trend. So I think it's about multiple things that come together all at the same time. And we have this saying that the earth consists of 5 elements. And if even one element goes out of balance, everything kind of shakes up, right? So I think just like that, even in business, you've got to have product, price, team, distribution, all of that coming together at the same time, which is what makes it very difficult. But if all of that happens, I think that's when you can say X works. Which one of this worries me?
Which one do you obsess about the most out of the 3?
I think I used to obsess about product the most, but now I've just started realizing that, funnily enough, there are a lot of factors that are not in your control. So I like to call them tailwinds, right? So when we launched, it wasn't like I was thinking, oh, we're going to time the market where protein boom is coming and hence we should build products with protein in them. Nobody can predict this stuff, but tailwinds just really help you, right?
Yeah.
They can help you a lot, but at the same time, they're not in your control. So I think just broad category things, you don't know what's going to happen. So sometimes those things worry me, but yeah.
Okay. Next question is that when you started SuperYou, there might have been some beliefs, some notions that you held very strongly, right? And you maybe believed in certain things very, very strongly. Maybe a couple of those that have evolved or totally changed in the last 12 odd months.
Yeah, I think I always lived under the impression that everyone kind of, when they speak about building a business, everyone has this habit of trying to say, okay, these are the different pieces of the puzzle, and if you just bring these pieces of the puzzle together, it just happens. But I don't think it's as straightforward as that. So a good example of that is a lot of people think SuperYou spend an exorbitant amount of money on marketing. And that's why you see it everywhere and it's all over social media, etc., etc. But it's actually quite the opposite. We've been very efficient in terms of marketing monies. The only thing that we did differently was be very, very conscious of it. So every rupee that was spent, there was a reason why it was spent in the place that it was spent at. And earlier it was all like, nahi, if you want to make a big brand, then it takes this much money. You have to invest this much, and that's how I got into it. That's what my initial thought was. But it's good to know that it can happen without large sums of money as well.
But let's say if I'm a young founder, just building on that, if I'm a young founder, if I'm looking to raise money, which which is available these days in the D2C space, then do you suggest the same thing? Because let's say not spending money on marketing might also mean that slower growth. In your case, maybe having Ranveer as a co-founder might have helped as well. But let's say in case a young founder today wants to start a D2C brand, do you suggest that they spend money on marketing if they're sure of the product, or do they still take it easy for the first year?
Yeah, I'm going to use one of those cliched words, which is product market fit. I hate cliched words and stuff, so use it however, but the confidence in the fact that so we have this theory which is you should have enough people loving your product versus having a lot of people liking your product, right? And love is the space you want to be in. And I think the moment you feel that you're able to get that and you can test that in 100 ways. In my case, in FMCG, it was actually going out giving the product to the consumer, because that first bite is the truth, right? With our consumers. So I think when we got confidence that, okay, fine, there is serious love that this product will be able to create, then we put money into it to say, okay, now let's just drive it. Contrary to what everyone thinks, of course, having a very large celebrity helps with content distribution, PR, helps with top funnel, grabs your attention, but it comes with its own challenge, which is if you don't supplement that, then it's a waste. So let's say you have to spend 10 rupees on marketing. Now with someone very, very large, you've got to spend 10 plus another 20 rupees. Okay. And if you don't spend that 20 rupees, the 10 also goes to waste. So it's kind of its own challenge in itself.
And if we go one level deeper, you mentioned about the like versus love. How do you test the love? Like, what did you do in the first 3 months when you started?
So like we were saying, I think CAC and there's a lot of terms that are created to confuse people. But I think for me, we made it very simple, which is if a customer loves the product, they will eat it again, whether or not we tell them to, right? So the magic was in that, which is we've made it available for someone to buy. Now let's see if this person is going to buy, even if we're not constantly bombarding them with ads. And we saw early days that a lot of people realized that, okay, fine, it's a good snack at a great price. And hence, they had that top of mind saying, okay, I'm going to eat a SuperYou.
Yeah.
And they kind of bought it even if we weren't running ads. And then the idea of running the ads was to get more and more people then to try it.
Yeah. And when
repeat was and is the only metric I obsess over.
And when you were launching this thing that you chose, the SKU in some sense that you chose was also a little different, right? As in the crunchy protein bar wasn't there in the market. Now, of course, we have a few copycats, if I can just call them that. But in some sense, you were the category creator, right? So how did you think about that? Were you worried about that? Were you excited about that?
Yeah, I think I was all. So I was worried and excited. So my POV on that was, I have a very strong belief that finally no amount of marketing sells an average product. But a great product doesn't need too much marketing either. And my idea of that was any new product has to bring some innovation to the market, right? Because otherwise it's very difficult to compete. Like, you can't just bring a white t-shirt and compete with a white t-shirt. It's very difficult to do that.
Even if it's better, let's say if someone hearing this today says that I love the crunchiness of SuperYou, but I want to start something similar.
Yeah.
And but then do you think, and if there's someone who works on the brand maybe a little better and all of that, do you think there's a opportunity there?
I think there's opportunity, but each brand still needs to find its own place and its own niche. Like, we took that risk. We took the risk of maybe not catering to a large set of customers, which was the low-hanging fruit, which was gym goers, because this product is not as heavy, so it doesn't keep you as full.
Yeah.
So a lot of people in the early days and some of the feedback when we did cohort testing said, but isse pet nahi bharta hai. And that was like, okay, then protein bars in your mind are meant to fill you up, right? So we challenged that theory and said, okay, look, it's worth it, because I had conviction that it's, not everyone is only a gym bro consumer archetype, and hence there are a lot of others, and can we take that opportunity?
Yeah.
And the other thing was we also looked at the numbers, and the numbers painted this picture for us, right? So I'd spoken about this, where the protein bar market in India was only 300-400 crores, which for context is not very large, right? And if it's not very large, it's screaming at you saying, okay, this requires something to be changed. And hence that was a signal of confidence to say, okay, look, it's worth taking a shot at this. And having been in the food industry, I know one thing for sure, and even if you're not from the industry, you'll know, in India, there's not a single person who will come here and say, I don't like something crunchy.
Yeah.
You just want more of it and more of it and more of it in whichever form, right? So that kind of had its place. We found its place there.
And I'm guessing you were very conscious with the positioning of not making it a very gym bro brand as well, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of those already existed in the market.
Yeah.
And so when you were thinking about the SuperYou positioning right on day one, what were the thoughts in your mind? I was listening to a podcast of yours where you were talking about, let's say, Ranveer, and how Ranveer, we have a lot of celebrities who act as, or who are, co-founders, who act as brand ambassadors, but a lot of them don't work because you put them in a room, you put people in a lot, you put people in a room and you ask, okay, what does this celebrity stand for? And maybe 10 people will have 5-6 different answers. But for Ranveer, it's maybe 9 people will have this, or maybe 10 will have the same answer. So, with all of this thought process, how were you thinking of the SuperYou brand and positioning on day one?
Yeah, so I'll answer in two parts. So one is, I think on the front of we obsess over brand, I think a little too much. But I just believe in a consumer space where products can get commoditized. Brand is the only long-term differentiator, right? And hence, spending time to think deeply about that is fully worth it. So our first thinking was not so on point in terms of, we were thinking of the protein consumer, we were thinking of the gym bro consumer. We developed a protein powder as a concept first, but we chose not to because we also realized that we want to speak to a larger audience, because that's the ambition that we've taken for ourselves, right? And with that, we knew that, okay, look, this can't happen. So we need to find another route. And that's what kind of pushed us into thinking that, okay, what is the larger, this idea of people post-COVID especially have gotten a lot of awareness of the fact that they want to make better decisions. They want to choose better, even if in small ways, right? And you don't want to sacrifice to kind of achieve something. And that opened up our eyes to say, okay, better for you is a large space to operate in, and hence, how can we be as a brand operate within that? And then within that, we narrowed down to pick our lane, which was this idea of energy. That obviously came with the natural fit between Ranveer. To say that, okay, look, everyone here, when they think of him, they think this out of the box, this hyper energetic guy. Can we bring that into the brand? The insight there was, we all will kind of look at him and be like, oh, I want to live that life. I want to be as carefree, not think about what other people think of me, etc., and just live with so much energy, zest for life. But we all get caught up, or we don't let ourselves do that.
Yeah.
But we aspire to. So as a brand, if you can build those codes into it, it would be something that people would really relate to.
Yeah.
And the second thing on your question with the whole celebrity angle is, so someone told me this before launching, and I thought it was the best thing ever, which is they said ki, I'm just going to use the names. I don't know how much of it will get cut out, but just beep out some places. But somebody told me ki kabhi Shah Rukh Khan apne picture ki ticket nahi bech pata hai, right? Which is the idea that, look, he's known for his content. That's his primary product that he's selling to all of us. And still, even a person like him can deliver a flop. Because if the product isn't good, then nobody cares. Nobody cares to pay extra money, right? So that just gave me that conviction that, look, having a celebrity is not going to solve for product.
True.
And it's not going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle in terms of building a business and a brand. So you have to obsess over product, because that bite is the truth. It's the ultimate truth. and repeat, which any food business will tell you, it's only about repeat. There's no other metric. And that comes in that. So we obsessed over that more
What
than
were you
about
obsessing
anything
about? I
else.
know, and we've spoken in the past that maybe the crunch was something that you were really obsessing about. But
Yeah.
what were the other 2-3 things that you were obsessed about?
So I think on a product functionality part, one was crunch. The second was obviously the fact that a lot of protein bars felt very dry and like just not easy to go through, let's say, right? But this is quite the opposite in the sense that it's not filling. It's very counterintuitive. It's the opposite of everything that a typical protein bar is in a sense. And I had a personal bias as well because I tried the product and I loved it so much. I said, I don't care if anybody else likes it. We'll do this.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that a lot of other people feel the same way about it. But it was just like, we didn't want to make the same thing. So we were like, okay, if these people don't like us, it's fine. We'll find our own set of consumers that kind of like us.
Has the same obsession transferred or translated to the newer product launches as well? Or the pressure of raising money, showing month-on-month growth, have you started just being, okay, maybe ye thoda chalta hai, let me just try this?
Yeah, so from a ideas perspective, 100%. Like you keep getting these ideas and it's so tempting. So I'll tell you guys very frankly, a lot of people tell me now ki Nikunj, a certain amount of brand has been built. Now there's people who know of SuperYou, just launch these 5 products and scale them fast, right? And it's very tempting to do that.
Yeah.
But I have to keep reminding myself that why people like the brand is because we brought innovation to the table. It's not just because it's a nice logo. Nobody cares about that beyond a certain point, right? So if we lose the edge of innovation, bringing new cool product, and I'll give you a good example. We launched protein powders recently. We've taken the tough road of trying to convince people that in India there's this third new option which is called fermented yeast protein. The simplest thing for us would be to create another whey protein and launch that in the market, right?
Yeah.
Easiest thing. But we've chosen not to do that, even if it means slower sales for us, because you have to spend more on education and this and that. But it just, I know long term, when customers say, okay, I tried the product and I loved it, not I tried the product and sure, it's like other whey proteins.
Yeah.
That has way more value in the long run than revenue today. But it's tempting, but we've got to hold back. So I try and do that to the best possible extent.
We spoke about a few things we spoke about a lot of things that worked, right? From day one, when it comes to SuperYou, the launch, the product. Maybe something that didn't come together. Something that you were very excited about, maybe you were very sure of. Sometimes you were very overconfident, ye to chalega hi.
Yeah. So look, so for context, I've been in the FMCG food business since 2013. So how many ever years that is, like 12, 13 years. And I thought that I understand this one thing really well, which is distribution, because I've been doing it for so long. And then I got this rude awakening that, and just for context, it's the most unsexy, least sexy part of the business. Very thankless, very boring. It's a headache. I dislike it, right? I dislike those meetings as well. But it's the backbone. And if your backbone is weak, you can't do anything. If your foundation is weak, you can't do anything. So when we just launched, there was this interesting play out that happened where people thought like the product was getting sold out everywhere and it's getting sold so fast.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Etc. And everyone thought it was hype marketing, that we were limiting supply. And the Marwadi and me was dying because I was like, I don't want to limit supply, I want to sell. And then I realized it was just because we had not figured out the operational rigor and the nitty-gritties, the small details that need to come together to have that place, to make it work like makhan.
Yeah.
And that took us like 3 to 6 months to actually get our hands dirty and really, really get right. And I don't think we're there yet. So if you ask me any FMCG company, the hallmark of a great FMCG company is this. And because I don't know if you're familiar with these words, but let me quickly tell you something. So there's this thing we measure, it's called fill rates, okay? Which is, imagine a customer's ordered 100 units from you. So let's say a retailer like Blinkit ordered 100 units from us. How many were we able to supply to them and then how many sell ahead, right? This number of how many were we able to supply out of 100 for large FMCG companies like an HUL, Marico, etc., would be north of 90 to 95. So they're very accurate at predicting demand. We were operating at 50, which is terrible. And you can imagine what that means. That means that every of those 50 units that we've not supplied to a Blinkit is just a sales loss for me. So on paper, if I just supplied 50 for which I have an order, I can do double the revenue.
Yeah.
And we're not being able to do it. So I think that made me realize that, okay, the game has changed. Quick commerce is, of course, a new channel. It's come up in the last 3 years. We've had to learn how to deal with their sort of nitty-gritties as well.
Yeah.
But I've realized like that's the
And
that's
how
the
did you
key.
solve that then? Did you hire a team that was just focusing on that? Like how did you go about solving that?
Yeah, so I think 2-3 things. One was in the early days, we didn't hire an expensive team or anything like that. It was just us sitting, few of us, and being like, it was grunt work.
Yeah.
It was genuinely grunt work. Like we used to track every single PO and what's happening. Has this been supplied? Has this not? Where is it stuck? Coordinate. That's all we did. We did that for the first few months, and then obviously I realized you can't scale like that. So today we've built a process in place, and we've got people who understand this very, very well now. So we're getting better, but to give you context, again, we're still at like 75 to 80% only. 75, I'd say, not even 80. So long way for us to go.
So, let's say again, if I'm a 5-year-old founder who's looking to get into the D2C or the, better for food space, we spoke about branding, we spoke about figuring out distribution, we spoke about product, of course, right? So again, for a young founder, how do I go about dividing my time about this? Like, let's say if I start today, do I figure out distribution first? Do I figure out brand maybe last, and let me figure out distribution and product first? Like, what advice will you give a 25-year-old founder today?
So I'm always wary of giving advice because I've seen different playbooks play out in successful and unsuccessful ways. So I don't know if there's one way to do it, but I do know one thing for sure, that you have to be able to do those things on parallel.
Yeah.
Because if you're not able to do that on parallel, then somewhere or the other, one thing will fall, and that creates a deterrent, right? A very strong one. So if you've created great product, but you have not the right place to sell it, let me give you context. Would SuperYou be the same if it wasn't for quick commerce distribution? I'd bet not. Because no matter how good the product is, trying to sell it on D2C, on Amazon, get customers to wait 2 days, buy only a pack of 10, impossible, right? So, but I think in other cases, in other businesses, it may not be the same. So I think you really need to figure out like what product would fit what channel. I knew that we're creating a 60 rupee product. It has to be in a quick distribution or a impulse distribution lead.
Yeah.
And hence design for that. But like, let's say you were selling a expensive product, then D2C is a great start, etc. But you have to solve for, unfortunately, pretty much everything at the get-go. You can't leave anything out.
You mentioned, you spoke about the protein market being, let's say, 300-400 crores, the size today. You speak about the better for you category.
Yeah.
How big do you think that market is?
So protein bars was 300-400 crores, and now it's grown. I think it must be close to like 700-800 crores now. Better for you, it doesn't have a number, but the way I like to describe this to people is, so what is the long-term vision of SuperYou? We want to build a 1,000 crore business with 15% EBITDA. That's the long-term vision. Long-term could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I frankly don't care, but I want to be able to achieve that, right? And the way we want to do it is, there are such large categories in food. And if you look at it like on a map, the biggest categories are, let's say, biscuits, which is like a 55,000 crore market, which is massive, right? And I mean, look around and think about it, right? Which house do you think does not get a packet of biscuits in their house, right? So penetration-wise, it's massive. Then there's obviously namkeens and stuff. There's chocolates, there's chips, savories, and so on and so forth, right? There's breakfast cereal and blah, blah, blah. And there's numbers that I've mapped to all of this. And I figured that, okay, look, these are the spaces where you may not be able to pinpoint and say better for you is X%.
Yeah.
But I know that a drop in this ocean is worth a lot more than a drop in any other ocean. So if we can just, let's say, carve out our own niche and our own space in a large 50,000 crore market, there's enough.
Do you think
there's
India is
enough
ready
in
for
the
that?
pie.
Because you again, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you said that maybe most people are okay consuming sugar. They're okay consuming, or maybe they don't care about the oil that is being used as an ingredient in the this thing, the product that they're consuming. So do you think this shift is now happening, or is it slow? Like,
So India is ready,
okay,
like hands down. I would not debate this with.
but is it tier one India that's ready, like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore,
No,
Indranagar,
I
Bandra,
think
or is it
I
India?
think India is ready.
Okay.
India 1 is ready, India 2 is ready. We've all now heard things like chini kharab hai, tel kam khao, chawal raat ko kam khao. Everyone's heard these things, but the beauty of business is everyone thinks demand kind of you need to create it, but our biggest like what we believe in is supply creates demand, right? Which is if you don't have good enough options, then where's that customer going to go? But I'll give you a good example. Today there's a brand that's launching protein atta, right? And for the people who said, no, I don't want to eat all these other products. I want to eat dal, roti, sabzi. Within this, if you can give me something, I'll adapt to it. Now you have a brand that's doing it,
Yeah.
right? So I think the more and more options get created, the more you'll see adoption to it. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a question of not wanting to do it. I think it's just supply will create demand. And I'll also tell you this, I don't think this is a job to be done alone by startups like us. This is a job that needs to go hand in hand by the entire ecosystem. And if you look at companies like Amul, they're kind of taking charge, right? So if Amul says, hey, listen, why don't you eat a dahi with slightly more protein versus a normal dahi? And obviously, if they're able to deliver on taste and
Yeah.
price, then why wouldn't customers?
And do you think that as a trend is emerging now? Because a lot of, earlier, I think maybe till about 5 years back, what was happening was that, and I'm sure, all of us would have noticed this as well, that all the brands were trying to create newer products in newer categories. But now the slight change that at least we see is that a lot of the brands are trying to just maybe differentiate in the existing category, like with the protein dahi or a protein lassi.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I like to call it same but different. And that's been like the SuperYou product strategy, right? Which is as a customer, you should feel like you're eating something you're familiar with. But it's different because it's better on the nutritional profile, the ingredient profile, and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of other brands have started realizing this. So when Kellogg's came into India, they thought that they'll come in and say, "Sab log aaj se cold doodh mein Kellogg's khao."
Kellogg's, yeah.
They realized in India, no one starts their morning with something cold. It took them 10 years to realize this, 15 years to realize this, and God knows how many marketing dollars, right? But then they realized and said, okay, finally, forget it. Don't do it with cold milk, do it with warm milk. So I think people will understand that, okay, Indian consumers have their own nuances. You have to build for that nuance. You can't very easily take them into new categories and new habit formations easily, right? Without spending a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have realized that, okay, we want to give you something that you're familiar with, but making it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And that's what, so if you see like chips, the SuperYou chips, the flavors are exactly the same flavors that we've all consumed all our lives, right? Which is magic masala ka lays, that sour cream and onion, cheese tomato, pudina. Pudina was Uncle Chip's kind of flavor, right? And we were like, yeah, okay, but we're already telling customer कि इसमें protein है, better ingredients है. The rest should feel like you're eating a Lay's.
But don't you then think about the comparison? Because let's say if I am eating the pudina chips, my first thought goes back to, oh, this tastes similar to Uncle Chips, but is it this, that the same? Do I like it the same?
Which is what we want.
Okay.
Because we believe that the better for you angle is so strong for us that that is what customer will. So I'll be very honest. If you compare the SuperYou blue chips versus let's say a Lay's magic masala, and you said purely on taste which one is better, as much as I would be biased, I'd say the Lay's magic masala is better in just purely on taste, right? But the difference is how much. So let's say if Lay's is 10 on 10, are we an 8? And then will the customer say, okay, look, that much I'm willing to do.
So you feel the willingness and maybe the guilt are strong enough levers for the buying patterns to change.
What we're not able to do is bring it at the same price. So a Lay's is at 20 rupees, SuperYou's at 40. That's a big barrier to cross as well for consumer. If we're able to do the same thing at 20 rupees, I think we'd see adoption like this.
So there
And
are two
obviously
barriers.
distribution.
There are two barriers to cross right now. Maybe the better for you is not a barrier. Maybe that's something that you hopefully cross. But the price barrier is there right now.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think that to sum up your this thing, India is ready. Brands have to get ready, and they are.
Okay.
So they're getting ready now to come in with better ingredients, better everything, without impacting cost.
And when we say India is ready, who's your target customer? Like, which age group? Let's say if we take a range of 5 years, who's buying your products the most?
So I used to think it was 18 to, because you said 5, I would think that it was 18 to 23 that was the largest. But what we've seen from our data, it's actually like 25 to 30, which is the largest audience for us. And then second is the 18 to this thing. Oddly enough, it is a little male skewed.
Okay.
Because a lot of women still do believe that it's not, extra protein is not for them and so on and so forth. So it is still a little bit male skewed, but that's changing. And in terms of demographics, we're still about 65 to 70% would be from the top 8 cities, which is your Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Ahmedabad.
Which city surprised you the most? Like let's say maybe some small city in India that you're constantly surprised that it's on the map.
Not small, but Lucknow does very well for us. And I'll be honest, I didn't think Hyderabad would do as well for us.
Okay.
But Hyderabad does really, really well for us. And we didn't expect that.
Last couple of questions, Nikunj. So
And Jaipur.
Jaipur.
Jaipur was a interesting one as well, yeah.
Okay. Last couple of questions. How do you think of competition today? A lot of people, a lot of brands trying to break into the category that you've created. How do you now think of that?
Okay, can I give 2 answers to this? So one is the philosophical answer, which I should be giving, and then one is the real answer. So, okay, jokes aside, have you guys seen this movie called Rush? Yeah. Okay, so the biggest thing I got in that movie is competition actually makes you better if you show them the respect that they deserve. And this, I mean, hand on heart, I genuinely believe this, which is they get you to do so much better than you can do yourself.
Yeah.
So actually having strong competitors helps a lot, and we love it.
Yeah.
I have a strong belief that SuperYou cannot create a market alone. No one can create a market alone.
Yeah.
Markets are created because multiple people now start talking about the same thing. So if we were just the one saying protein cow, protein cow, protein cow, maybe nobody would have listened. But now that there's like 100 brands saying, okay, protein is important, right from the giants like Amul to so many younger brands, people are saying, okay, it must be important.
Yeah.
So I think competition is very, very important. Internally, the way we see it is we want to win. We're not here to come second, we're not here to come third, and it's not even just about first, second, third, but we're here to give the most delightful, the best experience to customer.
Yeah.
Now, if that means on product, on distribution, on marketing, I want to be the best. So we're always going to try and be one level above everyone else, one step ahead of everyone else. But you have to show some folks the respect they deserve.
Okay. And last question, we started today's session by talking.
Sorry, just one last thought on that. The only thing that's annoying in that whole space is sometimes a lot of people don't create a level playing field.
Okay.
Which is frustrating.
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Cheap cuts and like doing things that are not right. And
have you ever felt like picking up the phone and just calling the person on the other side and saying something?
I should at this point not open my mouth further, but many times with many brands. But yeah, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah. So just last question for today. We started by learning that how product obsessed the SuperYou team and you were, right, when you were starting, and you still are. And if you ask 50 people about, and taste is just so personal, right? If you ask 50 people, they might give you 50 different answers. So how do you today understand what feedback to filter, what feedback to take strongly? How do you do that?
Yeah,
because also as founders, I realize that we take everything very personally.
Yeah.
Right. Even if one person says something, कि ये packaging अच्छा नहीं है, I won't be able to sleep at night thinking about it. So how do you do that?
So the first few months I was a mess. I didn't know how to kind of deal with this stuff. Like you said, I took everything personally. Pretty stupid of me. But I've learned. So now I've kind of learned how to figure out what's fluff, what's noise, and what's genuine feedback. And also now we have the benefit of numbers, and numbers never lie, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that the peanut butter variant, for example, some people say they really love, but I know it's selling the lowest, then I don't care. It doesn't matter to me because we're not building this for just specific people.
Yeah.
So one is numbers don't lie, so we take all emotion out of it. The second is I think there's also some amount of just conviction, which is you know that you're going to get a little bit of love and a little bit of hate. As long as you feel like the love is still in place, then you just got to power through the hate. You just have to have some amount of conviction in your product.
Which bar sells the highest for you, by the way? From a flavor, which flavor?
Strawberry is number one. Actually, strawberry and chocolate are now like level in that sense.
Yeah.
So they're number 1 and 2. Cheese, which is a surprising one, is number 3 on the bars. And now there's cookies and cream, and then 1, 2 others. Coffee.
Yeah.
And then peanut butter and orange. We launched a mango in the minis. That for some reason we've gotten very mixed feedback. A lot of people hate it, and a lot of people like it. So we don't know what to do with it. But yeah, and then on the powders, it's chocolate and coffee are pretty much the same. And in the chips, there's only 2 SKUs that do the best, which is the masala and the sour cream and onion.
Great. Cool. Thank you so much, Nikunj. Thank you for being very candid, very honest. Loved this discussion.